The Intelligence Paradox: Why Brilliant Minds Choose Solitude Over Social Life. The paradox of intelligence and social detachment. Imagine entering a bustling social gathering, laughter echoing, conversations overlapping, and a palpable energy filling the room. Amidst this lively scene, you notice someone standing alone, seemingly indifferent to the surrounding commotion. They aren't anxious or awkward. Instead, they appear deeply engrossed in their thoughts, detached from the superficial exchanges around them. This scenario encapsulates a phenomenon observed by philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer: the tendency of highly intelligent individuals to gravitate towards solitude over social interaction. Schopenhauer posited that for such individuals, the richness of their inner world renders external social engagements less appealing. Their minds are so occupied with profound thoughts and ideas that small talk and pleasantries seem trivial. In his seminal work, The World as Will and Representation, Schopenhauer argues that while the average person seeks company to escape the emptiness of their thoughts, the intelligent find fulfillment within themselves. This internal satisfaction diminishes the need for external validation or stimulation. Consider historical figures like Isaac Newton and Emily Dickinson. Newton spent years in isolation developing his theories, while Dickinson lived a reclusive life, producing profound poetry. Their solitude wasn't a sign of loneliness, but a testament to their deep intellectual engagement. This preference for solitude challenges societal norms that equate sociability with happiness. From a young age, we're taught that being social is essential for well-being. Yet for some, solitude isn't a void, but a space for creativity, reflection, and growth. Schopenhauer's insights invite us to reconsider our perceptions of social interaction and solitude. They suggest that the path to self-understanding and fulfillment may lie not in constant social engagement, but in embracing the richness of our inner worlds. Why solitude is a sanctuary for the highly intelligent. Imagine waking up in a quiet cabin nestled deep in the woods. No constant notifications, no obligations to chat about weather or weekend plans, just the rustle of leaves, a warm cup of tea, and your thoughts for company. To many, this sounds like isolation, but for the highly intelligent, it can feel like freedom. Solitude isn't just peace and quiet, it's a tool. For those with intense intellectual curiosity and creativity, it's the environment where breakthroughs happen. In solitude, they're not avoiding people. They're engaging in a different kind of dialogue, one with their inner voice. The mental overload of socializing. Let's break this down. Socializing, while enjoyable for many, can be exhausting for others, especially those who process information deeply. High intelligence often correlates with heightened sensitivity to stimuli. Crowded rooms, overlapping conversations, and small talk can overwhelm rather than energize. The highly intelligent might need more time to recharge mentally, preferring introspective activities like reading, thinking, or working on complex problems. That's not shyness or awkwardness, it's neurological bandwidth. They're conserving cognitive energy for what truly matters to them. Real-life example. Nicola Tesla. Nicola Tesla is a prime example. Revered as one of the greatest inventors in history, Tesla was intensely solitary. He lived alone, often walking miles while thinking through his ideas before ever putting pen to paper. He once said, "The mind is sharper and keener in seclusion and uninterrupted solitude." His choice to live away from social distractions allowed his ideas to blossom, many of which laid the groundwork for modern electricity and wireless communication. Imagine how different our world would be if Tesla had been more focused on dinner parties than diagrams. A world that misunderstands solitude. But here's the catch. Solitude is often mistaken for sadness. Society tends to pathologize solitude, equating it with loneliness or social dysfunction. But solitude is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is painful. Solitude is powerful. The difference lies in intention. The highly intelligent don't isolate themselves because they can't connect. They often choose to disconnect to preserve clarity. It's not a symptom of social failure, but a sign of mental discipline. Consider a composer retreating to a quiet studio to create a symphony, or a philosopher turning off all distractions to ponder life's meaning. These are intentional acts of solitude, not escapes, but pursuits. Commentary: the myth of the well-rounded individual. We're fed the idea that being well-rounded means being extroverted, always networking, always on. But maybe that's not the only valid path to success or fulfillment. There's a bias in modern culture that favors visible productivity, teamwork, meetings, brainstorming sessions. But the invisible work, the late-night thinking, the hours spent staring into space while neurons connect, is just as vital. The irony? Many of the world's greatest ideas were born not in conference rooms, but in quiet corners, bringing it closer to home. Let's look at a more relatable example. Ever met someone who always had their nose in a book during lunch breaks? Maybe they declined the Friday happy hours. It's easy to misread this behavior as standoffishness. But ask them about something they're passionate about, and their eyes light up. What you're seeing is someone whose inner life is rich, someone who doesn't need constant socializing to feel connected. We all know someone like that, and maybe you are that person. Deep thinkers in a noisy world. Why the intelligent often feel out of sync. Let's take a moment and step into a scenario. You're in a room full of people. The conversation is flowing. Gossip about celebrities, what someone did last weekend, or who's feuding with who in the office. Everyone's engaged, but you? You're stuck thinking about why people obsess over fame, how technology alters human connection, or whether free will even exists. You're not bored. You're misaligned. This is the silent frustration of many highly intelligent people. They're constantly thinking on a different wavelength. And in a world dominated by surface-level engagement, that deeper thinking can make them feel like outsiders. The curse of depth. Highly intelligent individuals tend to ask more from life. More meaning, more truth, more connection. But when everyday conversation skims the surface, they often feel like they're speaking the wrong language. Small talk, though socially essential, can feel painfully hollow, and that's not arrogance, it's incompatibility. They may crave conversations about ethics, quantum mechanics, the psychological roots of behavior, or the arc of history. But try bringing up the philosophy of Nietzsche at a casual dinner party and see how fast the room clears. The problem isn't just intellectual, it's emotional. It's about the need to connect on a level that few people are comfortable with. As a result, they often end up withdrawing, not because they dislike others, but because they yearn for something deeper than what's offered. Real-life example: Stanley Kubrick. Take Stanley Kubrick, the legendary filmmaker behind 2001: A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, and The Shining. Kubrick was notoriously reclusive and intense. He was known for obsessing over every detail, often filming dozens of takes to capture the nuance he sought. His films are layered, philosophical, and emotionally challenging. He rarely did interviews. Why? Because the public often misunderstood him. He wasn't trying to be cryptic. He just thought differently, on a deeper, broader level. Modern-day equivalent, social media dissonance. In today's culture, the dissonance is even more pronounced. Social media thrives on brevity, sensationalism, and constant engagement. For someone who values nuance and critical thinking, this can be disorienting. Algorithms reward instant reactions, not careful reflection, hot takes, not deep dives. And the intelligent feel this tug-of-war between needing to participate in society, but also resisting its shallowness. Imagine scrolling through a feed where every post is a polished version of someone's life, and you're sitting there pondering existential questions. It's not that you think you're better, it's that you're looking for substance and not finding it. Commentary: the pain of being too much. There's also a darker side. Many highly intelligent people have been told they're too intense, too serious, or that they think too much. But what does that really mean? Often it's code for, "You're making me uncomfortable with your depth." It's the tragedy of being reduced, simplified, and edited by others who don't, or can't, meet you where you are. The brilliant aren't always praised. Sometimes they're silenced. In childhood, they may have asked questions that teachers couldn't answer. As adults, they may hold opinions that seem contrarian, even though they're grounded in evidence. Over time, many learn to stay quiet, not because they lack ideas, but because they're tired of being misunderstood. Bringing it closer to home. Let's talk about someone like Maya, a real person I spoke to while researching this topic. Maya is a software engineer and part-time philosopher. Yes, she actually writes essays on metaphysics in her free time. In meetings, she often finds herself holding back ideas because she's been told they're too theoretical. Outside of work, she has a hard time making friends because people just don't want to talk about the things she cares about. She once said to me, "I feel like I'm living in a world where everything's too loud and too fast, and I'm just trying to slow it down and think." That's the heart of this section. Takeaway: don't dim your light. Here's what I want you to remember. Being intelligent in a noisy world is hard, but your depth, your thoughts, your hunger for understanding, it matters. Don't dim your light just because others prefer the shadows. Find your tribe. Seek out people who value thoughtfulness over performance. And above all, keep thinking deeply. The world needs that more than ever. The emotional cost of being highly intelligent. Let's take a moment to flip the narrative. We often romanticize intelligence. Pop culture paints it with shiny hues. Think of the genius hacker cracking codes, the philosopher delivering profound monologues, or the math whiz solving impossible equations. But what we rarely see is the emotional toll that this level of intelligence can exact. Because with depth of thought often comes depth of feeling, and that can be both beautiful and crushing. When intelligence becomes a burden. Highly intelligent individuals frequently experience the world through a different lens, one that sees more, questions more, and feels more. But there's a catch. When you're constantly analyzing everything, people's motives, societal trends, your own feelings, it becomes nearly impossible to just be. They struggle to turn their minds off. This constant processing can lead to anxiety, insomnia, and sometimes even existential dread. The question, "What's the point of it all?" isn't a once-in-a-while musing. It can be a daily companion. And when others seem to glide through life unbothered, the intelligent often wonder, is something wrong with me for caring this much? Real-life example, Alan Turing. Alan Turing, the father of modern computing, is one of the most tragic examples. Brilliant beyond measure, he broke Nazi codes and helped win World War II. But despite his genius, Turing lived a tormented life. He struggled with isolation, was persecuted for his sexuality, and ultimately died under heartbreaking circumstances. His story is a reminder that brilliance doesn't shield you from pain. It can make you more susceptible to it. Emotional sensitivity. Intelligence is often accompanied by heightened emotional sensitivity. This isn't always talked about. In fact, people often assume that intelligence and emotionality are opposites. Not true. Smart people often feel deeply. They can be extremely empathetic, attuned to others' needs, and devastated by injustice. They may cry at poetry, feel physically sick after watching the news, or carry guilt for things they didn't even do. They aren't weak. They're open. And in today's hardened world, that vulnerability can be brutal. Commentary: the loneliness of insight. Let's get personal. I've spoken to hundreds of people over the years who've described this same emotional disconnect. They can't unsee the patterns they recognize in society, the greed, the manipulation, the hypocrisy. They understand how systems work and how they often fail. This insight, while valuable, can create a kind of emotional loneliness. They feel like they're watching the world from behind a glass wall, able to observe but not fully participate. One man I interviewed said, "The smarter I got, the more isolated I felt. It's like being tuned into a frequency no one else hears. You can scream, but no one responds. They're not even aware of the sound." The curse of hyperawareness. Hyperawareness is a recurring theme among the highly intelligent. It's not just intellectual awareness, it's emotional and existential. They notice how others manipulate social dynamics. They pick up on micro-expressions. They know when someone's lying even before the sentence is finished. While this gives them an edge in reading people, it also makes them hyper-vigilant and sometimes distrustful. Their minds are like highly sensitive instruments, picking up emotional frequencies others ignore. But unlike instruments, they don't have an off switch. A story from the trenches: Elijah the analyst. Elijah, a 29-year-old data analyst, told me he often dreams of being average. "I don't want to be brilliant," he said. "I just want to stop feeling everything." At work, he sees inefficiencies that drive him mad. In relationships, he notices tiny shifts in tone or body language that most would miss, but that he can't unsee. These observations spiral. What did that sigh mean? Is she losing interest? Did I say something wrong? He admits he's exhausted, not from work, but from thinking about work, and love, and life. That's the emotional cost of seeing too much. Takeaway: intelligence needs compassion. Here's the hard truth. Intelligence without emotional support is a ticking time bomb. We must stop viewing smart people as self-sufficient robots. They need love, care, connection, and sometimes, ironically, permission to not think everything through. If this resonates with you, try to remember, you are not broken. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a reflection of your consciousness, of your awareness of the world's complexity and contradictions. That makes you rare, not wrong. The relationship trap. Why smart people struggle with love and connection. Let's dive into something incredibly human: relationships. We all want connection. Whether we admit it or not, most of us long for someone to truly see us. But here's the paradox. The more intelligent you are, the more difficult it becomes to form and sustain deep romantic or even platonic relationships. Why? Because intelligence, especially emotional and analytical intelligence, can complicate the simple act of being with someone. The overanalysis problem. Imagine this scenario. You go on a date. It went okay. Not great, not terrible. But by the time you're home, your brain has already replayed every moment in hyperspeed. Why did they pause before answering that question? Did that joke land weird? What did they really mean when they said, "I'm not looking for anything serious right now"? Smart people tend to dissect social interactions with surgical precision, while others might walk away thinking, "That was nice. Maybe I'll text them." A highly intelligent person is busy building a 12-point psychological profile, complete with red flags and long-term projections. It's not sabotage, it's survival, but it's exhausting. Real-life story. Vanessa the strategist. Vanessa, a 35-year-old marketing executive, shared her frustration about dating. "I can tell what someone wants within 5 minutes," she said. "But instead of going with the flow, I start playing mental chess. I think, if I do A, they'll do B, which means I should pivot to C. And by the end of it, I've lost the plot entirely." She didn't want to manipulate. She just couldn't turn off her pattern recognition engine. And because she saw the ending before the story began, she often didn't even bother starting. This is common. Intelligence often creates distance between possibility and action. High standards, low patience. There's also the issue of standards. Highly intelligent people often seek partners who stimulate them intellectually. They crave depth, nuance, and curiosity. But let's be real. Finding someone with compatible emotional and intellectual depth is rare. So they settle or stay alone. Those who settle often feel stifled. "I love them," they'll say, "but I can't talk to them about anything that really matters to me." Those who stay alone struggle with loneliness, but often feel that solitude is preferable to a shallow connection. Commentary. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. To outsiders, this might seem like arrogance. "Oh, you think no one is smart enough for you?" But it's not about superiority. It's about alignment. The intelligent mind thrives on complexity and dialogue. Without that, relationships can feel empty. This isn't about needing a genius partner. It's about finding someone who values depth, growth, and honesty. Sometimes that's harder than it sounds. The fear of vulnerability. Here's another complication. Smart people often fear vulnerability. They're used to being in control of themselves, of their thoughts, of their outcomes. But love isn't a controlled experiment. It's chaotic, it's messy, it's unpredictable. And for someone whose identity is built on understanding and prediction, that can be terrifying. They might dodge intimacy by intellectualizing everything. Instead of saying, "I'm scared to lose you," they'll say, "Statistically, relationships fail due to unmet emotional needs." See the difference? One is real. The other is armor. The isolation loop. The longer this pattern continues, the deeper the isolation loop becomes. A smart person avoids connection because it feels risky or unfulfilling. But then they feel lonely. That loneliness becomes pain, and that pain confirms their belief that people don't get them, which leads to more avoidance. It's a self-sustaining system, a loop, and it often lasts for years. A break in the pattern, Jay and Lena. Let me share a hopeful story. Jay was a data scientist, smart, methodical, deeply introverted. He told me he had given up on dating. Then he met Lena, a teacher with emotional intelligence off the charts. She didn't challenge his data models. She challenged his worldview. She didn't play games. She was emotionally honest. She saw through his overthinking and gently called it out. Jay said, "It felt like she pulled me out of a tunnel I didn't even realize I was in." Their connection wasn't about equal IQs, it was about balance. She brought warmth to his cold logic. He brought structure to her fluid emotions. That's the magic formula, not sameness, but synergy. Takeaway: let go of the script. If you're a highly intelligent person struggling with relationships, try this. Let go of the script. Stop trying to predict the ending. Stop editing yourself in real time. Stop waiting for someone who checks every box on a mental checklist you made 5 years ago. Instead, open yourself up to experience. Don't just look for someone who thinks like you. Look for someone who feels like you, who makes you laugh, who makes you question things, who makes you feel safe enough to stop performing. Because at the end of the day, connection isn't an algorithm. It's a risk, a leap. And sometimes the smartest thing you can do is jump. The weight of expectations. How intelligence can become a burden. Welcome back. By now, we've explored how intelligence shapes relationships, decision-making, and even our sense of purpose. But there's one invisible load we haven't addressed yet. The expectations placed on smart people, both by themselves and society. It's one thing to be smart. It's another thing to feel like your intelligence means you have to be exceptional all the time. The curse of potential. Let's start with a phrase that has haunted countless bright kids. You have so much potential. What sounds like a compliment often becomes a curse. It implies that anything less than brilliance is failure, that just being happy, ordinary, or still figuring it out isn't good enough. For many intelligent people, this sets the stage for a life of chasing outcomes instead of experiences, achievements instead of fulfillment. Real-life example: Amir's unlived dreams. Amir, a gifted child with a 160 IQ, was on track to become a theoretical physicist, but by 30 he was working a desk job in finance. Not because he failed, but because he realized he didn't want the life he thought he was supposed to have. I love the idea of being a genius, he said, but I hated the work it actually took to live up to it. He felt guilty every day, not because he wasn't successful, but because he wasn't living the version of success others expected of him. His failure wasn't real, it was imagined, a product of pressure, not performance. Commentary: Intelligence as a double-edged sword. This is the burden of intelligence. The bar is always higher. You're expected to figure things out quickly. You're expected to succeed without help. You're expected to live a life of meaning, impact, and perfection. And if you fall short, even slightly, people don't say, "That's okay." They say, "But you're so smart." This can create an identity crisis. Smart people often define themselves through their intellect. When their work or life doesn't reflect that, they feel lost. And because they've spent so long being the smart one, they don't know who they are without that label. The perfectionism trap. Intelligent people are also prone to perfectionism, not because they want everything to be perfect, but because they believe it can be. They believe they're capable of more, always, so they revise endlessly, delay decisions, or avoid risks unless success is guaranteed. This leads to chronic procrastination, fear of failure, creative paralysis. Ironically, their desire to be extraordinary often prevents them from being anything at all. Real-life story: Michelle and the book. She never wrote. Michelle always dreamed of writing a novel. She studied literature, analyzed story structures, and crafted complex characters in her head. But she never wrote the book. I kept thinking it wouldn't be good enough, she said. If I write something and it fails, what does that say about me? What if I'm not as talented as I thought? Michelle's intelligence gave her tools, but her expectations took away her courage. The toxic, gifted identity. Let's talk about the word gifted. It's loaded. Gifted kids grow up praised for being ahead, reading early, solving puzzles fast, winning awards. But no one teaches them how to cope when life gets hard, when they hit walls, when their gifts aren't enough to fix everything. As adults, they often struggle with imposter syndrome, burnout, emotional detachment. Why? Because their self-worth was built on being exceptional, not on being resilient, curious, or content. Breaking the pattern, redefining success. So how do you break free? Start by redefining success. What if success isn't being impressive, but being true to yourself? What if you allowed yourself to be average at some things, even bad at others? Because you're human, not a machine. What if being smart didn't mean proving something, but experiencing something deeper? These aren't just reframes, they're survival strategies. A new path, declaring enough. Meet Leo, a former startup founder who walked away from Silicon Valley at 33. I was miserable, he said. I had money, recognition, a team, and I hated all of it. Leo now works part-time as a community gardener and volunteers at a school. People think I threw my life away. But for the first time, I feel like I'm actually living it. He didn't stop being smart. He stopped using his intelligence to win a game he didn't want to play. Final reflection. Letting go of the performance. If you're someone who's always been praised for being bright, capable, or full of potential, here's a truth bomb. You don't owe anyone brilliance. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to wander. You're allowed to not know. Let your intelligence serve your joy, not your ego. Don't let the fear of not being great keep you from being real. Because ultimately, the most extraordinary life isn't the one that looks impressive. It's the one that feels authentic. The search for meaning, when intelligence outgrows ambition. We've talked about the internal battles intelligent people face, the overthinking, the expectations, the loneliness. But there's a deeper, quieter question that creeps in over time. What is this all for? When intelligence stops being about grades, careers, or even identity, it often becomes a vehicle for something more existential, the search for meaning. Smart, but unsatisfied. You might think intelligent people are automatically happy. After all, they solve problems faster, make logical decisions, and often achieve more. But in truth, many bright minds hit a wall that looks like this. I have everything I thought I wanted, and I'm still not fulfilled. Success came easily, but it feels hollow. I can explain the universe, but I don't know how to live in it. That's because intelligence can sharpen your awareness of life's emptiness, not just its possibilities. Commentary: The paradox of awareness. Think of it like this. Intelligence is a spotlight. It illuminates patterns, systems, injustices, and inconsistencies that others may overlook. But that also means it reveals the absurdity and fragility of modern life. A smart person might see through the rat race by 25. They might understand that money won't buy joy, that fame is fleeting, that success is subjective. And then they're left with the question, now what? This is where meaning becomes not a goal, but a necessity. Real-life story. Nadia's career. Pivot. Nadia was a high-performing lawyer at a top firm in New York. On paper, she had it all: prestige, power, and a paycheck to match. But one day, while prepping for a deposition, she froze. I realized I didn't care about any of it. I wasn't helping anyone. I wasn't even helping myself. 6 months later, she left her job and started working with refugees in Eastern Europe. It wasn't about being smart anymore. It was about being useful, and that changed everything. The shift from intelligence to wisdom. What Nadia experienced is the difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence wants to understand. Wisdom wants to connect. Intelligence builds systems. Wisdom asks if those systems are kind. Intelligence craves complexity. Wisdom values simplicity. And this transition often marks the second half of life for highly intelligent people. They stop chasing answers and start seeking presence. Examples of this shift in famous lives. Consider someone like Albert Einstein. He began as a mathematician obsessed with the laws of the universe. But later in life, he became a philosopher of peace, humility, and harmony. He once said, "Not everything that counts can be counted." Or look at Jiddu Krishnamurti, a brilliant thinker who walked away from organized religion and fame to explore the internal landscapes of consciousness and meaning. Their journeys reveal a truth. At a certain point, knowledge must make room for wonder. Practical reflection. Creating your own compass. So how does one begin the shift from intellect to meaning? Here are a few paths. First, service over strategy. Ask not just, what am I good at, but who do I want to serve? The latter leads to impact that feels aligned. 2. Stillness. Overstimulation. Intelligent minds often crave stimulation, but meaning is found in the pauses. Try mindfulness, journaling, or nature walks without podcasts. 3. Curiosity over control. You don't have to figure everything out. Sometimes asking better questions is more meaningful than chasing perfect answers. Real-life example. Arjun's art over analytics. Arjun was a software engineer who loved solving complex problems, but he always felt a quiet pull toward painting, a pointless hobby, he thought. Eventually, he started posting his work anonymously online. People responded. His images made them feel seen. It didn't compute, but it connected. "I finally felt human," he said. "Not just smart, human." Meaning as a personal creation. Here's the secret. Meaning isn't found, it's made. There's no single truth, no intellectual finish line, just choices. Each day you create meaning through who you spend time with, what you pay attention to, how you respond to pain, what you give back to the world. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be present for the questions. Final reflection. Let intelligence serve the soul. Let's wrap this section with a small provocation. What if your intelligence is not who you are, but a tool you've been given? What if its purpose isn't to impress, but to illuminate? And what if, in the end, the most meaningful thing you can do with your mind is to quiet it long enough to hear your heart? The final piece, embracing the gift, letting go of the burden. We've walked through the world inside a gifted mind, its razor-sharp clarity, its restlessness, its solitude, and its silent cries for meaning. Now, as we reach the end, There's one final truth worth sitting with. Being highly intelligent is not a prize. It's a path. Not better, not worse, just different. And the key to walking it well isn't found in proving your value. It's in learning how to live fully, love deeply, and think kindly. Let's bring it all together. Reframing intelligence as a lived experience. Society often treats intelligence like a metric, something to rank, score, admire, or envy. But what if it's something else entirely? A lens through which you experience the world differently. A sensitivity to patterns, possibilities, and pain. A power, yes, but also a vulnerability. The truth is, being smart doesn't make you immune to fear, grief, or loneliness. In fact, it might make you feel them more acutely. Intelligence amplifies awareness, and with that comes both beauty and burden. So the real question is not, how smart are you? It's, what will you do with the mind you've been given? Commentary. Stop performing. Start belonging. Intelligent people are often taught, subtly or overtly, that their worth is tied to their usefulness, that they're only lovable when they're performing. So they become perfectionists, problem solvers, prodigies. But here's the revelation. You don't have to earn your right to exist. You can stop being the fixer. You can be messy, confused, tired, vulnerable. Because life is not an exam, it's an experience, and no amount of intellect will ever replace the human need for belonging, connection, and grace. Real-life story, Jonah's breakdown and breakthrough. Jonah was known as the genius in his family. By 30, he'd earned 2 PhDs. He was admired but never truly known. One night, while alone in his apartment, something snapped. I was so tired of being brilliant, I just wanted to be held. He reached out to his sister, someone he hadn't really spoken to in years. He didn't say anything smart, just, "Can we talk?" That conversation began a slow unraveling and healing. It was the first time I let someone see the part of me that wasn't impressive. Just human. The takeaway. Intelligence needs integration. The final step for many intelligent people isn't learning more. It's integrating who they are. Reuniting their minds with their emotions. Replacing performance with presence. Releasing control in favor of curiosity. Letting their gifts serve connection, not ego. Because when your intelligence serves your humanity, not your image, you stop trying to dominate life and start participating in it. 5 final insights to hold on to / 1. You are more than your mind. Your thoughts are a tool. They are not your identity. You are still whole when you are quiet. 2. Loneliness is not a flaw. It's a signal to seek your people, the ones who see beyond your brilliance into your being. 3. Overthinking is a request for safety. Don't shame it. Just remind yourself, not everything needs to be solved. Some things just need to be felt. 4. You don't have to change the world. Just change someone's day through kindness, creativity, or courage. That's enough. 5. Let your mind be your servant, not your master. Guide it. Thank it. But don't let it lead you away from your heart. If this resonated with you, if you've ever felt out of place in a world that rewards surface over depth, speed over thought, noise over nuance, this is your reminder. You're not broken. You're not too much. You're just wired for more. More curiosity, more care, more clarity, and with the right boundaries and self-awareness, your mind can become your greatest ally, not your enemy. Real-life metaphor. The lighthouse. Think of yourself like a lighthouse. You shine far. You see more than most, and sometimes that's lonely. But lighthouses aren't meant to be ships. They don't sail, they guide. Your job isn't to blend in, it's to shine steadily so others can find their way, and so you can find yours. If this journey stirred something in you, don't let it stop here. Reach out to someone, start a conversation, share this video, or just sit in stillness and thank your mind and your heart for getting you this far. And remember, being smart is a gift, but being whole is the goal.